So I wrote a book called Evidence of Evolution, which gives an overview of evolution and then focuses on evolutionary stories of specimens from the Academy. And I collaborated with a wonderful photographer, Susan Middleton, who took fantastically gorgeous photographs of specimens. And she's such a wonderful photographer that although every single thing in this book is dead, because it's a specimen, she really brings it to life. It's a beautiful book. So to research that book, I did a ton of library research, but I also interviewed the scientists at the Academy. So this was excellent. This was an excellent way for me to begin really writing about conservation, because the way to really understand nature is to start with evolution, because evolution is the big context for how nature works. And it basically has this enormously long history of the first life forms that came onto Earth and how those have changed, adapted, branched, gone extinct, and continued to move through time. And when I was struggling with how to tell the story of evolution so people could understand it, I realized that I needed to tell people about the process of evolution, like that molecular stuff, but also the patterns of evolution. And patterns of evolution occur in time and in place. So biogeography, which is the history of how plants and animals came to be where we find them today, is biogeography. And it's the overall context for evolution. So a way to understand this is to go back to Charles Darwin taking his trip to the Galapagos. And Darwin comes upon the Galapagos and he notices that the plants and animals on these islands are very similar to the plants and animals he's just seen in Ecuador, but they're different. And he says, why is that so? But meanwhile, Darwin is entering the conversation of how plants and animals came to be where they are and what they are, a couple hundred years into the conversation. So go back to the very beginning of the conversation and put it at Linnaeus. Linnaeus called himself a pastor of nature. And what he did is he created this vast cataloging, this organizational system for understanding plants and animals. And so he was looking at Noah's Ark. It starts with God. Linnaeus is looking at Noah's Ark and saying, okay, after the flood, the plants and animals dispersed down from Turkey all over the rest of the world. That's what he thought. But then people start thinking about that. Well, how could plants and animals who can't swim get across oceans? How could plants and animals that could never survive life in a desert kind of show up on this side of the desert? And this is what Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace really kind of put a very big marker down and said that this process of natural selection, adaptation to environment, is what drives speciation, new species. So what you see is all these animals and plants are going extinct. We're cutting off this vast lineage going back millions of years, kind of willy-nilly, just because we want to build a shopping mart. And we've just reached a tipping point. We've reached a threshold. And this is partly, why I am beguiled and so interested in the subject. But also we're in a different time than when we grew up. It's much more serious. It's much more serious now.